Peace everybody, back with another video. This is Bob and Sheila Feldman, Corey Feldman's parents. 5 fast facts you need to know. And as you can see here in the picture is Corey Feldman. His documentary airs tonight, 11 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. Pacific Time, and also tomorrow, March 10th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time as well. Corey Feldman was born to a former Playboy waitress and a 60s musician in a suburb of Los Angeles. Feldman said his parents launched him to success, but it was not his decision. So Corey Feldman was born to a Playboy waitress and a 60s musician in a suburb of Los Angeles. So Corey Feldman also said his parents launched him to success, but it was not his decision. So Corey Feldman didn't have no say in anything when he was a child. Feldman wrote about the relationship with his parents, Bob and Sheila Feldman, in his 2013 memoir, Choreography. He claims his parents exploit him, taking him to auditions at age 3, and wrote his mom gave him diet pills when he was only 4. His father hired one of the men Feldman says abused him. John Grissom was hired by Bob Feldman as a personal assistant, Corey Feldman writes. So Corey Feldman wrote about his relationship with his parents, Bob and Sheila Feldman, in his 2013 memoir, Choreography. He claims that his parents exploit him, taking him to auditions at age 3, and wrote his mom gave him diet pills when he was only 4 years old. So his mom gave him diet pills when he was 4 years old. His father hired a personal assistant named John Grissom as a personal assistant, Corey Feldman writes. And so this is the guy who supposed have allegedly abused him. Feldman is naming names in his new documentary, My Truth, The Rape of Two Coreys, which airs on his own streaming platform at 11 p.m. Eastern, March 9th, and 3 p.m. Eastern, March 10th. Learn more about the film and how to stream the documentary here. So it is going to be on tonight and tomorrow afternoon. So you only get one streaming of it, and $20 will pay for this that you put in, will let you watch the documentary. Here's what you need to know, and of course here is Corey Feldman's Twitter account of what he has wrote on there, as you can see. Corey Feldman's mom, Sheila Feldman, was a former Playboy club waitress. He wrote in his memoir, Choreography, that his parents exploited him as a young child, sending him to auditions when he was only 3 years old. He claimed his mom gave him diet pills when he was 4, and that he was sometimes physically, that she was sometimes physically abusive. So Corey Feldman, his parents, Bob and Sheila, they exploited him when he was a young child, sending him to the auditions, and he was only 3 years old at the time. He also claimed that his mom gave him diet pills when he was 4, and that she was sometimes physically abusive. So she physically abused Corey Feldman when he was a child. He wrote that she gave him pills, which she said were caffeine pills. He didn't like the feeling they gave him, saying they made him anxious and sweaty. Soon he started selling the pills. He started selling the pills. She would call him fat and ugly. he said. He only lived with his mother a short time, he wrote in the book. Alright, so Corey Feldman wrote in his memoir that she gave him pills which she said were caffeine pills, and I really find that hard to believe. He didn't like the feeling they gave him, also saying they made him anxious and sweaty, so I kind of do believe that one. Soon he started selling the pills. She would call him fat and ugly. So his mother was a former Playboy waitress, and she would call her own son fat and ugly. I wonder if she looked in a mirror herself and see how ugly she is. He said he only lived with his mother a short time, he wrote in the book. So he only lived with his mother for a short time. I only lasted a month or two at my mother's, he wrote. She was constantly hitting me, even if I hadn't done anything specifically wrong. I'd still get a beating on what she called general principles. In her mind, there was nothing wrong with administering random beatings just to keep me in line, and had recently taken to smearing Clearasil on my face at night while I was asleep. So he only lasted with his a month or two at his mother's, and this is what he wrote. She was constantly hitting him. I mean, really constantly hitting him. Even if he didn't do anything wrong, she would still beat him for no reason. He also says, I still get a beating on what she called general principles. In her mind, there was nothing wrong with administering random beatings just to keep me in line. So even when he didn't do nothing wrong, she would still give him random beatings for no reason at all. And while Corey Feldman would sleep at night, she would be smearing Clearasil on his face while he was asleep. His mom denied the allegations in 2013 during an interview. At the time, she was using the name Sheila Kenner. So his mom denied the allegations in 2013, and it was during an interview. At the time, she was using the name Sheila Kenner. Now, I think Kenner might have been her maiden name before she got married to Corey Feldman's father. There's always good with bad, she said. It's not all negative. The business had been very, very good to our family. All right, so now she's saying there's always good with bad, and that it's not all negative. All right, so if it's not always negative, then why is she beating him for no reason at all? Even when he does nothing wrong, she still gives him random beatings. She also says the business has been very, very good to our family. Yeah, I don't think Corey Feldman liked the idea of being launched off into a career at the age of 3 years old, because he didn't want that, really. When she had Feldman, she was just a kid herself. She said in the interview, she had her son would have been more successful if he had followed her guidance. So Corey Feldman's mother was a kid herself. This is what she said in the interview. She said her son would have been more successful if he had followed her guidance. Well, it's not his fault. It's really his mother's fault, because she was just a child herself. If he had done it properly, he would still be working as an actor, director, and producer, she said in 2013. Corey Feldman does good at acting. I mean, movies he's been in, yeah, he's been doing pretty good for himself. Stand By Me, License to Drive, Dream a Little Dream, and other movies that he's been in. He's been a very good actor. And now his mother is claiming if he had done it properly, he would still be working as an actor, a director, and a producer. Well, Corey Feldman is doing better than what his mother is claiming to have said. And of course, here's Wendy Williams' Twitter account of what she posted on her account. Corey Feldman's dad, Bob Feldman, was a musician too. The former child actor said wasn't around for much of his childhood. Bob Feldman was a member of the 1960s band The Strange Loves, which were best known for the catchy hits I Want Candy and My Boyfriend's Back. Bob Feldman wrote and produced those hits, according to a 1998 Associated Press article. So Bob Feldman was a 1960s musician. He was, who the former child actor said wasn't around for much of his childhood, so he really wasn't around for him too much. Because he had to go out and make a living for his family. Bob Feldman had the catchy hits "I Want Candy" and "My Boyfriend's Back," and of course Bob Feldman wrote and produced those hits. And this is according to a 1998 Associated Press article. The Strangeloves claimed to be Australian, but actually lived in Brooklyn. He had passed himself off as a wealthy sheep farmer. So he claimed to have been Australian, but he was really living in Brooklyn, New York. He had passed himself off as a wealthy sheep farmer now, so his father lied of who he was. He thought he could get away with it, but obviously that didn't work. So, the lies are going to catch up, obviously. I think there's always been a little P.T. Barnum in me. He told the Associated Press. So that's what he said to the Associated Press. At that time, he had recently relocated to Nashville, where he was trying his hand at country music. So Bob Feldman had recently relocated to Nashville. I'm not sure how many years ago that was or how many months ago. He was trying his hand at country music. So that's why he moved to Nashville. I was out on a golf course in Florida, and I heard John Michael Montgomery singing "Be My Baby Tonight." Bob Feldman said in the interview, and the DJ said, "This is the #1 country song all across the country." I said, "That's country? Then I'm Roy Rogers." Bob Feldman was out on a golf course in Florida. He heard John Michael Montgomery singing "Be My Baby Tonight." This is what Bob Feldman said in the interview. And of course, the DJ said, "This is the #1 country song all across the country." And Bob Feldman said, "That's country? Then I'm Roy Rogers." Well, I doubt very much Bob Feldman is Roy Rogers, because he ain't no Roy Rogers. Here's another Twitter account belonging to a trend. I can't say that last name, but that person posted part of the movie Stand By Me, and believe me, that is a good movie. Of course, you got River Phoenix, Will Wheaton, Jerry O'Connell, and of course Corey Feldman. Corey Feldman said his parents exploited him to make money using his acting talents and sending him off to auditions when he was only 3. When he was only 4, his mom bleached his hair, and put him on diet pills. He told The Guardian in a February 2020 article he emancipated himself from his parents when he was a teenager. So Corey Feldman said that his parents exploited him and just to make money off of him, using his acting talents and sending him off to auditions when he was only 3. Of course, and when he was 4, his mom bleached his hair and put him on diet pills. Now, I have to say, his mother was very abusive, and I believe Corey Feldman of how his mother was to him. I really do believe him, because, being abused as a child, it's sad. Feldman was born and raised just outside Los Angeles, the son of a largely absent musician father and a former Playboy club waitress. Hadley Freeman wrote in the article, according to him, his parents looked at their baby, saw a potential money-making machine, and sent him to auditions from the age of 3. His mother peroxided his hair when he was 4 and put him on diet pills just a few years later to improve his chances of getting roles. Feldman legally emancipated himself from his parents when he was a teenager, just as Drew Barrymore and later Macaulay Culkin later did too. The history of child stars and their parents is rarely a happy one. So Corey Feldman was born and raised just outside of Los Angeles. He is the son of a largely absent musician father and a former Playboy club waitress. Hadley Freeman wrote the article. According to him, his parents looked at their baby and saw a potential money-making machine. So they were using him as a money-making machine. And this is why they exploited him and sent him to auditions from the age of 3. His mother peroxided his hair when he was 4 and put him on diet pills just a few years later to improve his chances of getting roles. So that's what they did to him. Feldman described acting as a way to get away from his miserable home life and occasionally violent parents, the article went on to say. So Feldman did describe acting as a way to get away from his miserable home life and occasionally violent parents. So the parents were very violent to him. The article went on to say, he described himself as a slave child in a 2016 interview with People, so he did describe himself as that. I was basically a slave child, he said, told People. I started working at 3 years old and it wasn't my choice. So Corey Feldman knew it wasn't his choice because it was his parents. He says, I was basically a slave child. He started working at 3 years old. Now, that is way too young for a child. A 3-year-old, come on, that is way too young to start on a career like that. In a 2016 interview with The Hollywood Reporter, he said his relationship with his parents was broken, so he could not report sexual abuse to them. So, yeah, in 2016, of course, the interview with The Hollywood Reporter, he said his relationship with his parents was broken, so he could not report sexual abuse to them at all. My parents were both very abusive and very selfish and were more interested in what was happening with themselves than what was happening with my life, he said. So his parents were very abusive and very selfish and were more interested in what was happening with themselves. So the parents only cared about themselves and not their son at all. Sheila Feldman, who also used the name Sheila Kenner, denied the allegations during a 2013 interview. So, of course, she would deny something like that. But a child will never forget an abuse. They live with it forever, and they are silent until they decide to come forward what was happening to them. But of course, he couldn't tell his parents because, the parents are going to say, oh, we don't believe you. That is this and that. Well, parents were no good. That's how I would put it. Here's Waters World Twitter account when Corey Feldman was on there. Corey Feldman met John Grissom in late 1986 or 1987 when his father hired him. He wrote in his memoir, Choreography, he described Grissom as a young, good-looking guy in his early 20s who was hired to work at New Talent Enterprises. Feldman called Grissom Ron Crimson in the book. So Corey Feldman met John Grissom in the late 1986 or 1987. And this is what he wrote in his memoir, Choreography. He describes Grissom as a young, good-looking guy in his early 20s who was hired to work at New Talent Enterprises. Feldman called Grissom Ron Crimson in the book, so that's how he had to change the name because he couldn't put John Grissom, so he put Ron Crimson. Every time I walked across the street to talk business with my father, Ron would saunter over and manage to say something outrageously funny. We hit it off immediately, Feldman wrote. It was almost eerie how similar we were. It was as if he had studied me and was copying my every move. So every time Corey Feldman would walk across the street to talk business with his father, Ron would saunter over and manage to say something outrageously funny. Feldman also wrote, it was almost eerie how similar we were. It was as if he had studied me and was copying my every move. So that's how he felt about Ron. Feldman wanted to name Grissom publicly years before he did so. His lawyers would not permit him to use real names in the book, saying it left him too vulnerable. The lawyers gave Feldman options of names that he could use, and he picked Ron Crimson because it sounded the closest to Grissom's real name. So the lawyers suggested that Corey Feldman changed the name from Grissom to Ron Crimson because it is kind of the closest names you could think of. Of course, there were options that he could use, and he picked Ron Crimson. So that's what he wrote in his book. We had to change the names legally, Feldman said, according to a 2017 Huffington Post article. The lawyers made me change the names. They gave me a list of 3 or 4, names. I picked the one that sounded closest to his name. So that's what Corey Feldman did. He picked that name that was closest to his name. John Grissom to Ron Crimson. So that was the closest name that they gave him to pick. Okay, this is things from the past, their Twitter account. Of course, as you can see, all of them here. Jerry O'Connor, River Phoenix, may rest in peace. Will Wheaton and Corey Feldman on the set of Stand By Me, and this was in 1986. Corey Feldman's mom, Sheila Feldman, discounted her son's allegations of abuse during an interview in 2013. At the time, Sheila Feldman was using the name Sheila Kenner. The interview followed the release of Corey Feldman's memoir, Choreography. So Sheila Feldman discounted her son's allegations. So in other words, she's claiming, "Oh, I never did this and I never did that." When I know, I could tell she's lying because she did abuse him. Corey Feldman even said it himself in his book. Of course, Sheila Feldman was using the name Sheila Kenner at the time. The interview followed the release of Corey Feldman's memoir, Choreography, so that's why she used her maiden name. She claimed during that interview that much of what her son wrote in the book was untrue and told her to just go along with it. She said they met before the book was published because he wanted to prepare for backlash. So she's claiming that during the interview that much of what her son wrote in the book was untrue. No, because if he's saying that his mom was abusive to him, I believe Corey Feldman, and told her to just go along with it. You just don't go along with nothing. When a child is being abused, yeah, they're going to remember, and it's going to stay with them forever until their story comes out. She also said they met before the book was published because he wanted to prepare her for backlash. And of course, you know Corey Feldman's mother it will get a whole lot of backlash after all this mess. This thing with Corey is getting totally out of hand, she said in the interview. I'm stressed, but I'm trying. It's very hard to deal with. It really is. I just have to deal with it. And yeah, of course she has to deal with it because she has no choice. And she's saying that Corey is getting totally out of hand. No, Corey Feldman is in total control of what he is doing because he is coming out with this documentary to 11 o'clock Eastern Time, My Truth, The Rape of Two Corys, which you can stream it on mytruthdoc.com, and it only will cost you $20 just to see it. She said in an interview that she had not read the book, but knew what was coming. So she never read the book, and she said that she knew what was coming. How can she know what was coming if she never read the book? I had a pretty good idea what was coming in the book because Corey and I discussed it. Said, at one point we went out to dinner. He said, "Mom, you're not going to like what I have to say." I said, "Corey, I'm probably not going to like it. I'm going to be pretty hysterical, and I'm going to know that most of it is not true." He said, "Just go along with it." She claimed, he told me, "I want you to know that you're just going to be getting swamped." Alright, so Corey Feldman and his mom, they allegedly have discussed it. Of course, at one point, they went out to dinner. Corey Feldman said, "Mom, you're not going to like what I have to say." She said, "Corey, I'm probably not going to like it. I'm going to be pretty hysterical, and I'm going to know that most of it is not true." Well, how can she tell if it's true or not if Corey Feldman is writing this book? He wrote everything that happened to him when he was growing up. His parents exploited him at the age of 3, being a child star, And it just isn't right. At age 3, you're supposed to be a child, not go on TV to be exploited. She said, he told me, I want you to know that you're just gonna be getting swamped. Getting swamped on what? Because he's telling the truth and she can't handle it? I mean, seriously, this is an abusive mother who exploited her son at the age of 3, gave him pills as diet pills at the age of 4, bleached his hair, and you think this is okay? Really? No, there is something wrong with the mother, and I think the mother is a real, I wish I could say it, but I can't, but she had no right to do what she did to her son, and neither did his father. Even though he was never around that much for him, because he was out making money as a musician, and of course, it takes time for anything to be done, but what Corey Feldman wrote in his memoir is the truth, and I believe everything he says, because these are the facts of what happened. I am praying that Corey Feldman will get justice once he releases the names of the people who sexually abused him, and that he will reveal the name of his best friend, Corey Haim, sexual abuse person as well. And then we'll know the truth. I don't know. There are a lot of rumors saying that Charlie Sheen might have been one of them. I don't know. But we'll find out soon of what is going on, because this is very powerful stuff of what Corey Feldman is doing. And once he reveals those names, then all the truth will come out. Come out once and for all of what really happened to them, to Corey Feldman and his best friend Corey Haim, when they were child actors. Leave your comments below. I am out.